So we turn now to the first Israeli to refuse mandatory military service since Israel's offensive began over 3 months ago. Tal Mitnick is an 18-year-old conscientious objector in Israel. Last month, he announced he would refuse military service, saying, quote, "I refuse to take part in a war of revenge." He was sentenced to 30 days in a military prison, was just released yesterday morning. Tal Mitnick is joining us now from a studio in Tel Aviv. Tal, welcome to Democracy Now! Can you talk about why you are refusing?
Thank you for having me on. I'm refusing because, like I said, I refuse to take part in this revenge war. I'm refusing because I want to make a statement about how we need to conduct ourselves in this land. I feel like there's too much violence here. There's too much revenge and talk about this side or that side. And we need to talk about how we need to go forward in a future of coexistence where both Israelis and Palestinians can live together and live with security and peace.
So talk about what exactly this means. How did you make this known? Talk about where you served time in prison. And is this just a brief period of days before you're sent back to prison?
Yes, I got sentenced for 30 days for my first sentencing, and I got another draft order for Monday morning, which means I have to get drafted on Monday morning, where I will go and refuse service once again and probably get sentenced again. And this will happen over and over until the army gives me an exemption.
So talk about the response of your friends, your family. And I was also just wondering, you're an Israeli, but you have an American accent. Are you American as well?
My parents immigrated from the U.S., and we spoke English at home, but I'm Israeli and American, yes. My friends and family response was thankfully mostly very understanding, because people that know me and people that talk to me know that I come from a good place of non-violence and coexistence. I feel like the people that got to talk to me, also inside military prison, a lot of them Ben-Gvir supporters, they support killing all Arabs. When they got to know me before they knew my political opinions, they understood. They understood that there are people that don't support this.
Can you talk about your time
in
prison? And where are you being held?
So I'm being held in a military prison where other soldiers that have committed crimes inside the military and got sentenced to military prison are also being held. It's not a fun experience, but it's also not the worst experience imaginable. It's not like the experience that Palestinian prisoners are being held under in the West Bank or inside Israel. Yeah, it's very strict timing, very strict about what you're allowed to do and when, but this is something that I'm willing to do to make an impact.
I'm wondering if you feel the climate is changing among Israelis, and also what Israelis see about what's happening in Gaza. I mean, we just reported we're talking about now close to 25,000 Palestinians killed, over 10,000 children, over 7,000 women, many believed to be dead in the rubble. We don't even know that count. If you watch something like Al Jazeera or you watch other media, since there are only Palestinian journalists there on the ground, you see endless pictures of carnage, of horror, of babies being pulled out of the rubble, dead or alive. What do you see on Israeli TV? We're talking about people who are just 15 minutes away from Gaza.
So actually inside prison, the only source of news that we got was one newspaper called Israel Hayom. And every day on the newspaper, there will be pictures of the soldiers that died. And I remember feeling like I feel sad, very sad for the soldiers and the families that have to take this great burden of losing someone close to them. But I know that while seeing soldiers dying, I know that this means that there are much more Palestinian civilians dying, which we don't see in the newspaper.
Who else are you serving time with in that prison? Who else is there?
Sadly, a lot of the other people there they are deserters, which means that they served time in the military, and then at some point, for some reason, they went back home and did not come back. Most of these people desert because of socioeconomic reasons, if it's having to take care of their siblings or go work for their family. And when they come back and turn themselves in, we're now seeing a very heavy sentencing of those deserters as a part of the fascist persecution and the fog of war. People that went to work for 3 months to feed their family are now being sentenced to half a year in military prison.
Can you talk about the overall anti-war movement, if there is one in Israel? I mean, there were massive protests, up to 1 million people on the streets, which is massive for Israel, around the Netanyahu wanting to gut the power of the judiciary. Of course, he is under charges himself, and that would help him remain out of prison. But at that point, many reservists said they would not serve in the military. Everything changed after October 7th, Hamas attack on southern Israel. If you can talk about why that did not change you, and how large is the anti-war movement, and do you feel it's growing?
I feel like after the horrendous attack of October 7th against Israeli civilians, there was a very important conception that was broken in Israeli society. The conception that we can live with the siege and with the occupation and not feel it. Now, when that conception is broken, we have a vacuum. And there are two ideas that are trying to pull people. One idea that the right is offering, which is we can't live with occupation, we can't live with siege, this means we need to wipe all of them out. And the other idea, the moderate one, the one that makes sense, is that we can't live with occupation, we can't live with siege, we need to step forward for peace. Inside military prison, I got asked a lot, what do you think, we should just stop the war and put our hands up and not do anything? And I would answer, no, we need to keep fighting, we need to keep fighting for a just future. We need to stop the physical fighting between us, and we need to very, very aggressively push for a better future.
Wondering your response to Prime Minister Netanyahu once again saying, from the river to the sea. When Palestinian advocates and their allies talk about from the river to the sea, the response of the Israeli government has been, that means they're for the genocide of Jews, because they don't want Jews to be there, the government says. Now you have Netanyahu saying, not that this hasn't been said before by Likud, but from the river to the sea, Israel must control. Your response to that, Tal? And if you can talk about the word occupation, because in the U.S. media also, there is rarely that word used, that Israel occupies the West Bank and Gaza.
The term from the river to the sea is very controversial inside of Israel. And I feel like some people that use it, there are people that use it that mean the genocide of Jews inside Israel. But just the term itself, I feel like, does not mean a genocide of Jews. It means freedom for all Palestinians from the river to the sea. When Benjamin Netanyahu uses this term, it does not mean freedom for all from the river to the sea. It means oppression of Palestinians, and it means Jewish supremacy from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea.
Finally, Tal, I'm wondering your response to Jews around the world, particularly here in the United States, like Jewish Voice for Peace, these massive protests that have been held from Grand Central Station to shutting down the bridges and the tunnels from New York to highways in California, saying, we want a ceasefire now. How do you respond to that, and your final message to other 18-year-old Israelis?
These protests are amazing. These organizations like Jewish Voices for Peace and If Not Now do incredible work, and I support the continuation of these protests all around the world. And a message to other people my age, other kids, I feel like it's important to know that we have a voice. I used to think that that talking to people is all we could do, but we can change, and people want to hear what we have to say because we're the future, and this is, yeah, we're the future, and we can change. And
finally, might you spend months, more than a year in jail if you keep saying no to military service, since Netanyahu says this will go on for more than a year?
Because there's no policy set for jailing conscientious objectors, I don't really know how much time I'll spend in prison, but it could be months.
Tal Mitnick, 18-year-old Israeli activist known as a refusenik. He's refused mandatory military service in the Israeli army, the first conscientious objector in Israel since the Israeli assault on Gaza began over 100 days ago. He's just sentenced to 30 days in prison, which he served for refusing to enlist, was released a few days ago, then will be called up again and says he will refuse again.
Comment if you agree, or not, or just have any thoughts on this expression. Please avoid abusive use of language and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Thank you.